Welcome back to another episode of Nas Stay Tuned, where we preview all the movies or television shows that are coming out for that month. So for this episode, we're going to be talking about stuff coming out in July. We do the research for movies and TV, so you don't have to. I'm your host, Daniel De Sangre.
I am not your host, Jose Ramos. Now, this is the third month that we're doing this, and this one's going to be a little different because technically there's only like one major recognizable show that's coming out for the month, and it's pretty much all movies, which we discussed in the last episode we did of these, that now we're in blockbuster season. This is
Hmm.
where a lot of the big movies comes, and it's also the off season for a lot of TV shows that are going to be coming debuting in the fall. So it's going to be tilted towards the movies probably this month and next month, and then maybe when we get to September, we'll start seeing it balance out a little bit more.
Yeah, perfect. But I mean, we're both movie heads, right? And it's always easier to kind of get into movies and check out movies than it is TV shows, just because the bigger commitment level. So I'm on board with it.
Exactly. And we can just get right into it. On July 7th, that first weekend, the first one we're gonna get is we're gonna get a horror movie, Insidious, The Red Door. I'm surprised this is coming out in July because of this being like blockbuster season. Usually you get your big movies. I feel like you don't get too much horror in July. Usually that's early in the year or as we get into like the fall. But we've got that. It stars Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne coming back for they were in the first two Insidious movies. The surprise here is this, I believe this is actually Patrick Wilson's directorial debut
Hmm.
for this movie, his first one that he's going to be directing while acting in it. What are your thoughts on this one?
I wonder if that's how they got him back, was to probably promise him the directorial debut. I wonder, you know. I loved the first Insidious was really good. I liked it a lot. I remember seeing the sequel. I don't remember it too well, to be honest with you. I don't recall if the praise about it, was as high as the first one. I'd imagine probably not. This one, it sounds interesting. Do you know if it's the same actor that's playing the boy? Obviously, it's the same
Uh,
character.
yeah, so this is a continuation of two. So they're pretty much not, from what I know, not delving into the other ones.
Hmm.
Continuation from two, I believe it is still the same kid now who is older. And basically, the whole concept of it is what was done to them at the end of part two to repress the demons is no longer working. And now the father and son are having to face off again against this evil
Against it.
while
Yeah.
he's like in college.
Yeah. It's I like the Insidious world that they painted, so I'll definitely watch it. I don't think I'll be checking it out in theaters. I'll probably just wait for streaming on this one, but it looks interesting. You know that they're hitting the same little music from what is it, Tiny Tim? That little tiptoe to the meadow.
Yeah.
So that's cool that they're doing a lot of cool callbacks.
I think I'm the same way. This probably will be a wait until it comes out on streaming. I do want to see it. I enjoy the first two Insidious. I'm glad they're going back and kind of continuing that story. And it'll be cool to see the same people, but now so much later and kind of continuing their story. So I am willing to check it out. Most likely it's going to be when it comes to streaming on this one.
Nice.
So, next we have our first big movie of the month, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. That one's coming out on July 12th. That one's being directed by Christopher McQuarrie. He's like, I know we did an episode recently, duels, director actor duels. This is like one of Tom Cruise's. He's done three of them were Mission Impossible, but he's done three Tom Cruise movies that he's directed. Jack Reacher was one of them on top of the Mission Impossibles. And he also, you remember Way of the Gun? He was actually the
Hmm.
director for the Way of the Gun.
Nice.
Yeah, and I remember enjoying that movie. It starts, I mean, all-star cast, but some of the people we know, Tom Cruise, Rebecca Ferguson, Asai Morales is going to be in there, represent.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, so it's going to have a huge cast as always. Basically, the concept you can link up to any generic like action spy movie, which is the team is tracking down a weapon that threatens all of humanity before the bad guys get it. That's your general concept. What are your thoughts on this one?
Man, I'm stoked that Morales is in this, because we got representation in Mission Impossible. Like, yay, we exist in this universe. But no, The Mission Impossible movies are awesome. I was a little late to the game, but as you know, on some of the Mission Impossible sequels, but when I got into it, I'm into it, man. So I'm stoked for this one. They had to do some kind of de-aging with Tom Cruise in these movies. And the reason why I say that is because when you see him outside of these movies, you can see his age. You know what I mean? Like he looks older. You see him in these movies, and he looks exactly the same as he did in Mission Impossible 4. Like he
Makeup
looks the
magic.
same.
Makeup
Yeah,
magic.
it is, man. Like so something's being done. But overall, the movies, I mean, I have no question that it's going to be solid. Like it's going to be at least good. Now, whether it ranks, as whether it improves on the others like the others, it's hard to do. And we keep saying, man, that's so hard to do. It's so hard to do because eventually you're going to peak and then you're going to start to kind of give, sequels that are start to be okay, but they start to diminish a little bit in quality. They haven't done that yet. So how many more peaking levels do they have in them? I don't know, but I think the movie's going to be solid at least. Like, I think I'm going to come in at least at a 7.5 for this movie. How about you?
No, I agree with you. I'm definitely excited. I believe actually the last one that came out, we saw it together. That's when I was visiting
Mm-hmm.
to
Yeah.
California, and I was like, "Dang, you gotta watch it. You gotta watch
Yep.
it."
Yep.
And it was great, and actually ended up being my favorite of the series, and probably one
Mm-hmm.
of my favorite action movies overall. They do what they do so well. They seem to have this niche just carved in, and they've like almost perfected what they do, and they have a direction. It seems coherent. It's not like a Fast and the Furious that's all over the place. Just throw whatever you can and see what sticks. You know, they have a different approach to it, and it's paid off so far. So I am definitely excited for this. I've seen the videos of the crazy stunts, so I want to see one more. And then we also, again, we added Morales into it, so I'm excited to see him. We also added, I can't think of her name right now, but Agent Carter. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we added
Peggy.
her. Huh? Yes,
Peggy.
Peggy.
Yeah.
We added her into it, and we added Palm from
Mm-hmm.
Guardians of the Galaxy. We added her into it.
Yeah.
So I am excited for all of it. This one I will be checking out in the theater probably first day.
Yeah, Palm has that cool shot, for those, she plays Mantis in Guardians, but you just see her with the expanding baton thing that comes out and the camera panning in. I'm like, yeah, like it seems like she's gonna have a cool fight scene and they're setting it up well. I have a question for you. This one versus John Wick, one of the franchises has to die. Which
Oh
one, which
no,
one do
come
you
on, man.
keep? I'm choosing those two
Oh,
because I know how golden those are to you.
oh.
I have
I
an
guess,
answer.
I would probably have to keep Mission Impossible, as hard as that is. John Wick is amazing action, amazing visuals, but then if you truly break down the story, it's as simplistic as possible. You
Yes.
got more story and so far more longevity from Mission Impossible. So I'm gonna have to go with that one reluctantly.
Yes, I'm the same way. Their villains are better, and it's just more realistic, right? Like you can, even though uh Ethan is doing all these amazing things and things that seem so unbelievable and it'd be hard for one man to survive, when you still watch them for what they are and take them one by one, it's still like for the most part is believable that somebody can survive that specific incident. Now, when you throw in the whole collection, sure, it's difficult. John Wick is doing so many Superman type things that you're reminded very much that this is a movie that you're watching. You know what I'm saying? Whereas Mission Impossible, sometimes you get stuck in the hoopla, and they got freaking Superman. You got freaking Superman
Yeah.
fighting him in the bathroom. Like, come on.
That being said, going on to the next one, this one I don't think is going to theaters. I think this is going to Netflix, but it's Birdbox Barcelona. Comes out on July 14th. The director is David and Alex Pastor. I don't really know anything that they did before. Uh, it stars Mario Casas and Michelle Jenner. Those are some of the main people that are in it. Basically, it's Bird Box in a different country. I believe it takes place within the same time frame, but it's just like, hey, we saw what was happening in this town. Now let's see what was happening in Barcelona during the same time frame and how they dealt with it there. Uh, so I mean, it's gonna be on Netflix. I probably check it out. I don't know if I'll check it out the first day that it appears, unless I have nothing else to watch. The last one was okay. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't amazing. It was okay. If it's not gonna cost me anything, I'll check it out. What about you? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so when I first heard about it, I wasn't enthusiastic at all for it because I'm like, okay, we saw the first one. It is what it is. It wasn't a bad movie. Like it wasn't. And I know we kind of crapped on it a little bit on our podcast, like in the very beginning when we talked about it, like how bad it was, specifically Chuck. Like Chuck despised this movie. But when we rewatched it for that 100 horror movie challenge, it's not a bad movie. You know what I mean? It's not bad. It reminded me a little bit of like The Quiet Place, whereas I thought The Quiet Place kind of improved on some things. It kind of reminded me a little bit like that. And a lot of it's because you have like a smaller suburban town and it seems to kind of revolve around that. This Barcelona one though is interesting and it reminds me of that horror movie Wreck, like Record,
Hmm.
REC. Like what was it, the sequel I think it was, where it takes place in Barcelona, I think, or something like
Yeah.
that, or out that way. So that's more interesting. It has Spaniards in it, so you already have my interest. So I'm definitely gonna watch it. I definitely will watch it, especially the fact that it's streaming. I'll check it out. The environment seems more interesting to me than where the first one took place.
Yeah, I mean, the concept is there. That's the thing. I think with the first one, part of my negative reaction was out of disappointment because the concept is good. It was just like I felt there's so much you can do there. And then the execution in certain parts just seemed bland. Like, oh, you could have gone so much further with that. You could have done more with that. That's, I think, what some of my personal negative reaction was towards it. So now we have another opportunity of taking the same concept and maybe executing it better throughout for an entire movie.
And I think this one has promise because, like you said, the premise behind it, it's very big worldly, meaning like you can see how it affects multiple people. You can see big set pieces, big action set pieces.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. I like when they do that. I think Walking Dead kind of
Mm,
did that. We saw the first season of Walking Dead. You see him wake up from the hospital. You see the after effect. But that was like, I believe that was like in Georgia or something like that. So it
mm.
was, more small town country and things like that. But then they did the Fear the Walking Dead. While the first season is not the strongest, we got to see the big city level of that same time frame, and that part was entertaining. So I definitely agree with you 100% on that. Uh, Moving on to the next weekend, we actually have two big movies coming out that next weekend, which are on two opposite sides of the spectrum. First, we have Oppenheimer, directed by the man, Christopher Nolan. Uh, All-star cast, can't even name all of them, but just, it's got Cillian Murphy in there, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon. I can keep going. It has a ton of people in there, all-star cast. It's based off of the Manhattan Project and the, developing of the atomic bomb. And the consequences of that, can bring, advancing technology versus like what that technology can bring to humanity, positive and negative. That's kind of all that it's covering. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it reminded me of what Ian Malcolm's line was in Jurassic Park. Just because man can doesn't mean man should. And that's kind of reminds me with this atomic bomb is they would have a line that's similar to that. Like you basically gave mankind a blueprint to annihilate ourselves, and we don't have the willpower to stop ourselves from doing that.
Bro, you have no idea how many times I've been saying that Jurassic Park line in my head over the last few months when we've seen all this AI stuff. I'm like, did
Yes.
they not watch Jurassic Park? Listen to the man.
Yes, or Ex Machina. Like, come on, we've seen so many tales telling us not to do this. Why are you playing around like you're God? I know, man. Oppenheimer seems like a fun experience. I dig the fact when filmmakers do make movies that they're telling us, hey, this needs to be seen in theaters, because as we've mentioned on previous episodes, so much content is made for streaming and we don't get the full movie theater experience much anymore. You can go watch a lot of these movies, but is it necessary for them to really be in theaters? This one, absolutely yes. So I will absolutely watch this in theaters as Christopher Nolan suggested.
Yeah. With this one, honestly, I didn't need to watch the first trailer. I did watch it just for the heck of it. But as soon as I saw Christopher Nolan attached to it, I was already going to be there the first weekend.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite directors. Uh, I don't think he's made, in my personal opinion, he's made a bad movie. It's kind of like when we got peak like Pixar, like the bad Pixar movies are still good movies for everyone else. That's kind of where Christopher Nolan's at, where he can have lower level Christopher Nolan movies, but they're still not bad movies.
Yeah.
So I will be seeing this the first weekend. I will be seeing it in the theater. I will do my best to watch this on IMAX, the digital theaters. I want the full experience because this was actually filmed with IMAX technology, so it's meant for that platform. And supposedly they created it in a way with the visuals and the sounds where you're gonna feel like you're in this environment when the bomb is going off. The fact that Nolan being Nolan, he actually set off a damn bomb to get there like this movie. It's like you have to respect it. I will be there. And then looking at the cast, there will not be one bad performance. If this movie ends up not being great, it's gonna have nothing to do with the performances of this. It's gonna come down to, is the story interesting enough around the creation of the atomic bomb to keep you engaged? But it's not gonna be, I think, the visuals, it's not gonna be the directing, it's not gonna be the acting. That's the aspect that might bring that in. Is it interesting enough?
It's going to be the runtime. If the runtime is too long, where it feels like it's too long and it feels like the story's bloated, that's when you then start questioning the story and questioning the, like you said, the interest of the atomic bomb. But I trust Nolan. He's kind of like a Scorsese, where they have it in their head, I'm doing at least 2.5 hour movies regardless. And then even when you watch the movies, there are some scenes where you're like, okay, this wasn't necessarily needed. You could have cut it down a little bit to make it a little tighter. But at the same time, they're giving us character pieces and all that. So I get it. Again, I totally get it. I understand the creative process of the filmmaker. I respect it. But I want my literal socks blown off my feet when I'm watching this. I want to sit there and have my socks go and just fly off with the atomic bomb, where it's like, whoa, and it's like the slow-mo. Let's
You
get
gotta
it.
you gotta pick them up on the way out. Staff is there with everyone's socks. Yeah, that one's mine.
That was mine. You got to compare them.
I am wondering if for me this is gonna be like a Dunkirk. Uh, Dunkirk, I watched it in the theater and I feel that was meant for the theater. I really enjoyed the
Yeah.
experience. I watched it at home and I didn't enjoy it as much. And it was like, okay, this is a movie you need to see in the theater to really get the full effect. I feel Oppenheimer is going to be the same thing. Watching it at home will not give you the same value as watching it in the theater.
I agree with that. And I felt the same with Dunkirk. But I think a lot of that had to do as well with not only the experience, of course, but the storyline. It wasn't a cohesive storyline that Dunkirk had. It was like, here's a war movie, and I'm going to show you scenes and impacts and events. This one, I believe, is more of like a cohesive storyline. So that tends to be always a little more natural and being able to kind of process as you're watching it. So that's my theory behind Dunkirk. I think that's probably why it's a little less at home.
Yeah. I am curious. It seems by what I've seen in the story that most likely it will be. I am curious if this might be one of Nolan's most straightforward movies that he's had in a while. We had Dunkirk with the jumping back and forth and the different perspectives and kind of mess with time when certain things were taking place. We had Tenant, we had Interstellar, we had all these movies that just were very, very out there, not straightforward. You had to do a lot of thinking. You had to analyze and break down, basically create a thesis after these movies. I'm wondering if this might be a very straightforward movie, or we're gonna get some kind of, twist or thing to it that's gonna bring it to that science fiction level that's gonna make us think.
That's a good point. You would have to imagine it won't be so theory, driven, where you have to come up with your own, because it's a more biography in a sense. And I've even heard Nolan mention that one of his filmmaker friends saw this and compared it, where it's very similar to like a horror movie. And he said, well, he's not wrong. So that has my interest in it. The other ones were more based off of fiction, obviously, right? And he was creating these complicated storylines. This one, we have Oppenheimer, and we're discussing about the invention of the atomic bomb. So it's kind of hard to misinterpret facts that he's given us,
Mhm.
unless if he's painting off of surrealism and all that, which I don't think it is. So I'm hoping, and I think it's more of a straightforward story. I mentioned it before on an episode where we're talking about specifically Christopher Nolan. I think he's due for something like this, sort of like the way that Dunkirk was, where you just gave us a very here's the story, and I'm just gonna immerse you into this world. That's what I hope Oppenheimer is.
Yeah, I think it'll be good for him, especially for the general audiences, people who are not huge Christopher Nolan fan, kind of like a palate cleanser. He's given us all these like colognes. Now we need to, just smell the coffee a little bit, kind of reset everything
Yes,
before we get to his
yes,
next movie.
yes.
All right, so coming out that same weekend, we have Barbie. This is directed by Greta Gerwig. She's known for directing Lady Bird, which I watched. It wasn't a bad movie, but it was definitely not meant for me. So I wasn't a fan, but I'm not the demographic for that movie. Uh, but I know a lot of people did enjoy it. It's got Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling. They're the main ones in there. Basically, the concept is, Barbie and Ken, they leave their perfect Barbie land and find out the difference of living in the real world. So we're getting this whole like fish out of water storyline, but with like Barbie and Ken. What are your thoughts on this one?
Reminds me exactly like Master of the Universe. We kind of take the advantage off of it, but this iteration of Barbie is so much better than what they were telling us that it was originally going to be, right? Because they had Amy Schumer that was going to be in it. It was an entirely different director. I don't know what that version was going to be. Just because Amy Schumer, like, she's not known for being an actress. So you're giving us this kind of performance. Obviously, she doesn't look like Barbie. I don't know what the spin on that would have been. This one is more interesting. I like the fish out of water concept. Is it original? No, they've been doing movies like this since for decades and decades, well before you and I were born. But it's still, they go back to this because it works. And as long as you get it, it works. And with the trailer, I'm gonna be honest, it looks pretty funny. It's I know we're probably not the intended audience for this, but it's one that I'll probably watch. I will watch it during streaming because I think Ryan Gosling looks pretty funny in this. I see Michael Cera. I don't imagine that he has a big part in this, but they did enough to this to kind of let me know, okay, I understand the type of humor that they're going with this, and I'm on board. I mean, it looks pretty fun.
Yeah, no, no, I agree with all the points that you made, and we did recently do that. Basically, that's what Sonic was. Is Sonic kind of
Yeah.
coming into the real world and kind of dealing with that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I gotta say, my thoughts on this movie have changed so much from when it was first announced to like where it's at now. Where actually I do have an interest in it. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it looks like it could be funny, it could be entertaining. I'm gonna obviously prioritize Oppenheimer in the theater, so this one will probably be a streaming watch for me overall. But and also, how often do you see Ryan Gosling pick a bad script? So that already is like a
Especially
positive for it.
lately. Especially lately.
Yeah. He tends to pick good scripts. Margot Robbie always tends to be entertaining. I feel that this is going to be probably the surprise of the summer compared to what people's expectations was when they first announced, hey, we're going to do a Barbie movie, to what it ends up being. It might be one of those hidden gems that people end up really enjoying overall. So definitely check it out, most likely on streaming.
It does feel like they're gonna set up a lot of like gifs or memes in the movie. Like they're gonna set those up to help out with marketing and all that. So I can imagine a lot of iconic scenes or moments or lines of dialogue or something that you're gonna see popping up on social media.
To end the month, we have Haunted Mansion. Comes out July 28th. This one's directed by Justin Simeon. He's mainly known for Dear White People. I've never personally seen it, but I know there is a following for that show, and it was received well. Uh, Basically, a woman enlists a group of spiritual experts to help clear their home of evil spirits. It stars, Jared Leto, Lakeith Stanfield, Tiffany Haddish, Danny DeVito, Jamie Lee Curtis, Owen Wilson. It's got a bunch of people in it, so it's got an all-star cast overall. So I think that's a positive for it. What are your thoughts on this?
The cast is interesting. I wasn't super enthusiastic when I first heard about them making this movie. I do enjoy the ride riding it at Disneyland, but when they came out with the original Haunted Mansion movie, like what, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever it was, I didn't even finish the movie. It was like,
That's one with
okay.
Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, that's the one with Eddie
Yeah.
Murphy about him and his family. So in this one, I see the trailer and it with that high cast that it has in this, like I'm a fan of Rosario Dawson. It's got Jamie Lee Curtis in this again, so I'm glad she's still getting her resurgence. It looks okay. Like it looks okay. Like I'll give it a shot streaming, but it definitely feels like a kids movie.
Wasn't a fan of the original, but that one was meant for kids. I gotta say, when I saw the trailer of this one, it did pique my interest a little bit. I was like, okay, this looks different. This doesn't look as campy, and as much for little kids as the other Haunted Mansion did. This one, some of the visuals actually look pretty cool, like they're pretty creepy with some of the spirit designs, and it's got this all-star cast. So I'm a little optimistic that it might be entertaining. Uh, it's not go to the theater movie for me. I understand taking the family in there, that's a different story. But when this comes out on streaming, I'll definitely check it out. There's enough there for me to be intrigued with the cast and the look of the movie. And it seems like it's leaning enough towards horror and less towards the super campy that it's like, okay, you might be entertaining for me.
Yep. Good.
All right. With that, we go to the one TV show that we have debuting that has a recognizable name, which is going to be Twisted Metal on July 28th. I believe this is it's going to be on Peacock, I
Mm-hmm.
believe,
Mm-hmm.
the
It
the
is.
streaming service. It's directed by Michael Jonathan Smith. It's got Anthony Mackie, Will Arnett, Nev Campbell. It's based off the video game. I don't know if you played it when you were a kid, but I remember playing it. Wasn't my favorite type of games, but they were enjoyable to play for 30 minutes here with your buddies. But the concept or the story of this is you have a guy trying to deliver a package across a post-apocalyptic wasteland while dealing with all these marauders that are trying to stop him, kill him, or rob him, whatever it is. And Anthony Mackie is that one. And then they bringing in the famous character off of the cover, the clown. They're bringing them in, and it's actually they have an ex WWE wrestler who's playing that role in there. But what are your thoughts on this one?
The video game I played a couple. I never owned it. It's not my type of video game, but I remember playing it a little bit, when some of my friends had it. Um, I'm not really that interested in it. When I saw the trailer, yeah, they brought back the famous clown. But I don't know. I like Anthony Mackie, but not necessarily enough to like I need to watch every one of his projects. But I mean, he does good, but the scene that they've showed us where he's shoving against like where they're fighting in the casino and they're playing the thong song, it just seems very cheesy to me, man. I
Yeah.
saw it and I was like, I'm out. I don't think I'm gonna watch it. Like again, if it gets like high praise or high or people that I trust tell me to watch it, maybe I'll give it a shot, but it doesn't do anything for me. No.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with you on this one. I when I first saw it and saw announced it as a teaser, I'm like, maybe I'll check it out. Then I saw the 2 minute teaser with the Dawn song, and I was like, nope, you lost me. This is where I exit. Good day, sir. Continue on. Now, I will never say never because if it gets to a point where I have absolutely nothing else to watch and it is getting some praise, maybe they just chose the wrong scene to tease, I might do the 3 episode, hit it or quit it like window
Yeah.
for it. But right now, as it stands, I'll be avoiding this show.
That pretty much does it for our Stay Tuned episodes. So catch us once a month where we're going to be previewing the upcoming movies and television shows. So that way you can check us out, kind of get a break of kind of put some stuff on the radar, that maybe you didn't hear of. So other than that, please like, subscribe, comment, share on our YouTube channel, Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcast. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Not a Strong Start. I'm your host, Daniel DeSangre. You can follow me at King_Sangre.
I'm not your host, and Jose Ramos, and you can find me at This Is Mi Nombre on Instagram.
Exactly. So add those noties and you can watch with us and stay tuned.